you miss on Wednesday, it's okay, because we're literally going back over that kind of stuff. So on this first one, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply -2 times 2, and that gives us -4. I times I gives us I squared. We learned last week that I squared equals -1. So anytime that you see an I squared, you're just going to go ahead and substitute in a -1 into there. What's -4 times -1? +4. Okay. We're going to do the same thing on the next one. So 3 times -3 is going to give us -9. I times I gives us I squared. I'm going to substitute in a -1. So -9 times -1 is going to give me what? +9. Are there any questions about this? Okay, I will not be able to answer, hey, what's I squared on the test? You have to have that memorized. Okay? You have to know that I squared equals -1. On the next part, you can use the box, but I'm also going to show you the distribution method. So I'm going to do 2 times 2, which is going to give me 4. 2 times -I, which is going to give me -2I. I times 2 is going to give me +2I. And I times I gives me -I squared. So just like back when we were doing regular polynomials with like x's, we're going to combine our like terms on this one. So we've got this -2I plus 2I. So that's going to cancel out. I'm going to bring down this 4 and this -I squared, but that -I squared can turn into a -1. And since it was already negative and we have a -1, that's going to be a +1, which is going to be 4 plus 1, which is going to give me 5. I want you to take a moment and try this next one. Okay, take a moment, try the next one. All right, so on this one, we're going to take -3 times -3. That's going to give us a +9. -3 times -4 is going to give us a +12I. 4I times -3 is going to give me -12I. And 4I times -4I is going to give me a -16I squared. I'm going to combine my like terms. So these would cancel. I'm going to bring down that 9. And I'm going to switch out this I squared for a -1. So this will now become 9 plus 16, which is going to give me 25. Questions on that? Okay, you've got to be able to multiply in order to do the rest of the stuff that we're going to learn today. So today we're going to actually divide, which is very similar to multiplying. What happened to the square? Remember, I squared equals -1. So we're going to substitute in a -1. If it's just I, like regular I, we're just going to keep that there. Yeah. But these canceled out because there was a 12I minus 12I. Yeah. Okay. So all right, so today we're going to apply what we've learned about multiplying to help us divide complex numbers. Okay, so really quick, we're going to talk about something called a conjugate. I think y'all did a delta math on this one. So conjugates are A minus BI and A plus BI are conjugates of each other. For instance, if we have 5 plus 3I, the conjugate is going to be 5 minus 3I. Okay, so notice how we change the sign of the imaginary. On this next one, -2 minus 3I, the conjugate is going to be -2 plus 3I. Again, change the sign of the imaginary term, not the real term. If I had 10i, the conjugate would be negative 10i. Okay. So what are the similarities and differences about the numbers that are conjugate? Okay, so what's similar about the conjugates? So between here and here, what's similar? Same numbers. So we're going to say same real number. Okay, and then what's different about them? The sign of what? Sign of imaginary number is different. Okay, so real term is the same, but imaginaries are different. Now, when we multiply conjugates together, okay, and what that means is if we multiplied 2 minus 4i times 2 plus 4i, what happens when we do that? Well, if you take a look at the 4 problems that we just did, the 2 at the bottom are conjugates of each other, okay? And what you're going to notice is that you get a real number at the end. You get a real number at the end. Okay, I'll give you a minute to write that stuff down. And I want you to match each expression to its conjugate. Okay, so take a moment, match each expression to the conjugate. You should have one for each expression. All right, so we're going to match the conjugate. So 5i, what is the conjugate of 5i? Negative 5i. All right, negative 1 plus 2i. What's the conjugate? Exactly. Okay. What about negative 6 minus 5i? And 1 minus 2i. 1 plus 2i. And then we got these two are left. Okay. Questions on what a conjugate is and how to like figure out what it is. Sorry, that was really silly. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the next part. Let's actually put this into practice. Like, why does it matter? Okay. So remember that I equals the square root of -1, and radicals cannot be in the denominator. So way back in the day, the math gods said, hey, you can't have radicals in the bottom. Okay. They're like, nah, you can't have these imaginary terms in the bottom either. Okay. So we got to get rid of the imaginary part in the denominator. So if you have I in the denominator, that is a big no-no. Okay. So we're going to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. So for instance, this example right here, we would multiply by 1 plus 2i in the top and in the bottom. That way it gets rid of the I in the denominator. And we're going to see that in our examples in just a second. So again, you have an I in the bottom, that's a no-no. You got to get rid of it. Okay. So taking a look at the next examples, what is the conjugate of this one? What's the conjugate of the denominator? -4i. So we're going to multiply by -4i in the top and -4i in the bottom. Now, I know we don't like to multiply fractions, but when we multiply fractions, we're going to multiply across the top, and then we're going to multiply across the bottom. So 3 times -4i is what? -12i. In the bottom, we have 4i times -4i, which is going to give me -16i squared. Okay. And then now we're going to simplify this. So remember, your I squared is going to turn into a -1. So that means that all I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the sign of this denominator, which will give me 16. And then if you are able to, you are going to simplify this by taking out the greatest common factor. So what is 12 and 16 both divisible by? 4. So negative 12 divided by 4 is going to give us negative 3. And 16 divided by 4 is just going to give us 4. And so that is the simplified version. Ta-da! That seems so impressive. Yes, yes. Okay. So what's the conjugate of the denominator? Positive 8i. So we're going to multiply by 8i in the top, and we're going to multiply by 8i in the bottom. Okay. So I'm going to distribute this. So 2 times 8i is going to give us 16i. 7i times 8i is going to give us 56i squared. In the bottom, we're going to get negative 8i times 8i, which is going to give me negative 64i squared. Okay. If at any point in time you don't get an I squared in the bottom, you messed up. Okay. So now we're going to simplify. Okay. We're going to switch out these I squared for negative 1. So this is going to give me 16i minus 56 over positive 64. What's up, Ben? Why did I distribute? Okay, so I'm going to multiply. Everything that I have right here is going to multiply by anything that's over here. I'm going to take this and multiply it by this. It's kind of like the same thing as saying 8i times 2 plus 7i. You would distribute, right?
Yeah, but why didn't you just say 2 times 7 times 8? You would get a different number.
Say it again.
Why don't we just multiply across 2 times 7i times 8i?
2 times 7i times 8i. Because these are being added together. You don't want to multiply these two. What's the operation that's in between? You see what I'm saying? Okay. All right. So on this next part, what is everything divisible by though? What is it? 8? Okay, let's try that. So we got 16i divided by 8. That's going to give us 2i, right? And negative 56 divided by 8 is going to give us negative 7. On the bottom, 64 divided by 8 is going to give us 8. And I can't simplify this anymore, right? Now, your answer choice might be written like this, or it might be written like this. Because your real always wants to come first. Okay, so this is probably what you're going to see. All right, so the conjugate of this guy is going to be 4 minus 3i. And we're going to multiply that in the top, and we're going to multiply it in the bottom. So we're going to distribute. So 5 times 4 is going to give us 20. 5 times negative 3i is going to give us negative 15i. 4 times 4 is going to give us 16. 4 times negative 3i is negative 12i. 3i times 4 is positive 12i. And 3i times negative 3i is negative 9i squared. We're going to simplify this. The top's going to stay the same. In the bottom, I'm going to get 16. And that negative 12i plus 12i is going to cancel. And I'm going to be left with negative 9i squared. But we know that that I squared changes to be positive right here in the bottom. Okay, so I know I did a lot right here. So just a reminder, if I have an I squared, it's going to be negative 1. That's going to change the sign of this 9 to be plus. And then now I'm going to simplify. So I get 20 minus 15i over 25. And then everything is divisible by 5. So that's going to give me 4 minus 3i divided by 5. Yeah. Okay.